الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله وما توفيقي ولا اعتمادي إلا على الله عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا مثيل له في علو شانه وعظيم سلطانه ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده وحبيبه ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى رحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته وأهل بيته خصوصا منهم على أئمة خلفاء رسول الله على التحقيق أمراء المؤمنين حضرات أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي ذو القدر الجليل وعلى بقية الصحابة والتابعين رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. أيها المؤمنون الحاضرون اتقوا الله تعالى وأطيعوه إن الله مع الذين اتقوا والذين هم محسنون. الحمد لله على نعمه ظاهرا وباطنا. Alhamdulillah, we are praising Allah and thanking Him for gathering us again together in His worship and gathering us together as a community in a holy place, a masjid, a house that is dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. Because when you enter a masjid, you don't find anything inside. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. And we believe what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said without a doubt. And he told his Sahaba in many ahadith about the signs of the last days. Something very important. If it was not important, he would not have mentioned it. And especially he would not have mentioned it in al-Hadith, the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, the hadith that describes and in which the Prophet ﷺ was asked by Jibreel, who came in the form of a human being, a very shining, clean, pure human being, in front of all the Sahaba and asked him, what is Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ explained that Islam is to give the testification of faith. Jibreel alayhi salam, except the Prophet ﷺ. He said, you have spoken the truth. And the Sahaba were amazed that he asked a question, and when the answer was given, he confirmed it and said, you have spoken the truth, as if he already knew. And then he asked about Iman, and the Prophet described his conditions and principles. To believe in Allah and His angels and His holy books, in the prophets and messengers of Allah, in the last day, and in destiny, it's good and it's bad. And again, Jibreel alayhi salam said, Sadaqt, you have said the truth. And then he asked about Al-Ihsan, and the Prophet described Al-Ihsan as the station of perfection in which one worships Allah as if he is seeing Him. And if you cannot see Him, for no one can see Allah, then know that He is seeing you. After this description, a complete and perfect description of the religion from its beginning to its end, then the questioner asked another question. He said, what do you know about the hour? And the Prophet ﷺ said, I do not know more about it than the one who is asking. Then what are its signs? And the Prophet ﷺ began to describe its signs. So that hadith is considered one of the most, or the most important hadith that has ever been related by Prophet ﷺ, because it's so comprehensive. And that hadith ends with a description of the last days, as-sa'a, the hour, the final hour, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he described it. You would see the Bedouins, barefoot and naked, competing with one another and building tall buildings, and other descriptions that he gave in that hadith. So that is a sign to us that knowledge of the signs of the last days is like knowledge of the 5 pillars. It's like knowledge of the branches of Iman, and it's like knowledge of the station of the Ihsan, or what is known as the science of Tasawwuf. That makes it one of 4 parts of religion, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. The hour has approached and the moon split. Allah is describing that the hour is so close, and He's also mentioning the splitting of the moon. The splitting of the moon took place in Mecca. It took place in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And yet Allah is saying that the hour is so close. So what we see as close and what we see as far is not what Allah sees as close and what Allah sees as far. Because of that, we have to take heed, because the signs of the hour are what are going to give us the clearest. It's a very detailed hadith. I'll read some of it in Arabic, but not all of it. قام علي ابن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه وأرضاه على المنبر فحمد الله وأثنى عليه وقال يا أيها الناس صلوني قبل أن تفقدوني. قالها 3 مرات. فقام إليه ابن سوحان العبدي فقال يا أمير المؤمنين نبئنا متى خروج الدجال. فقال يا ابن سوحان أقعد أعلم الله مقالتك. So Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he was Khalifa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went up on the minbar for Jummah and he praised Allah and thanked Him, and then he said, "Oh people, ask me before you lose me. Ask me before you lose me. Ask me before you lose me." 3 times he said it. That's indicating the very importance of what he's saying. Why? Because Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, he contained and carried the knowledge of all the holy books and the knowledge of Islam that the Prophet ﷺ has granted him above and beyond so many others. He's the one full of knowledge of the tafsir of Quran. And he's whom Allah mentioned so many times in the Quran in many different descriptions. So one of the companions that was there, who was present, said, Sa'sa ibn Sawhan al-Abdi stood up and said, "Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, tell us about when the Dajjal will come forth." When he said that, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu said, "Oh Ibn Suhan, sit down. Allah knows what you have said. The one being asked knows no more than the one asking." So Sayyidina Ali answered in the same way that Prophet ﷺ answered to Jibreel when he asked him about the hour. Then he said, "However, there are signs for it, and there are things people narrate to each other about it. If you wish, I can tell you about its signs." That Sahabi said, "Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, that was what I asked you about." He said, "Sit down, O Sa'sa." So think about that. In the Jummah, someone up and asking a question. That's against adab. But Sayyidina Ali allowed it because he wanted them to ask. And Ibn Suhan was so eager to know, he wouldn't sit down. Even the first time he said sit down, he didn't sit down. So finally he said, Sayyidina Ali said, "Sit down, O Sa'sa, if people cause the prayer to die." What does it mean, cause the prayer to die? It means that prayer becomes something lost and not remembered. And people don't do it anymore. If people lose the lunar months, when they make lying lawful, when they consume riba, usury, when they accept bribery, when they build tall buildings, when they follow their desires, and when they sell religion for this dunya, and they take killing lightly, they cut the family ties. So all these things, have we seen them? Yes, we have. The prayer, who prays today? And if they pray, do they pray in the conditions that the Rasulullah ﷺ asked? No, we don't, none of us. Did we lose the lunar months? Yes. Now we are following the Christian style of calendar, and we've forgotten to look for the moon. And even if we want to follow the lunar month, we don't look at the moon. We go and look at our iPhone and see if the moon has come. It tells us if the moon has come, but if it hasn't come, we would never know. They make lying lawful. So lying has become lawful because everything is lying today. They consume riba, usury. Usury is everywhere. In America, but also in Muslim countries, it's completely covering everything. They accept bribery. Yes, do they accept bribery? We accept bribery everywhere. If not for bribery, most of our countries, they don't work. They build high buildings. Okay, we know that one. So clear. They follow their desire. They sell religion for dunya. And they take killing lightly. And they cut the family ties. So all these things we have seen. And then he continued. If forbearance becomes weak and oppressors rejoice. Princes are obstinate and ministers are betrayers. And even the Gnostics become oppressors and the reciters of Quran become deviant. And if oppression, zulm, becomes manifest, and if divorce, sudden death, and slander become prevalent. Did we see all these things? Yes, we did. And he said, if the mushafs are embellished, means the Quran is decorated highly. The mosques are decorated. We see today mosques so beautiful and so embellished, but no one praying in them. The minarets are made tall. The rows of prayer are full. The contracts are breached and hearts are broken. And if a wife shares in her husband's business in order to protect their dunya, and if women stop wearing skirts and imitate men in their dress, and men imitate women, and if the greeting of salam is only to those whom one knows, and if testimony is given before it is asked, we saw that today, and if they wear sheep skins over the hearts of wolves, that's the saying which means wolf in sheep's clothing. In English they say wolf in sheep's clothing. It means you disguise your evil intentions by making yourself very nice, very appealing. Their hearts are more bitter than patience and worse smelling than a dead corpse. And they pursue the dunya through actions of akhirah. And if study of fiqh is without any real knowledge and understanding, then beware. Beware, O Sa'sa' bin Sohan, at that time. Blessed is Al-Quds, Jerusalem, as a place to live. There will come upon people a time when someone will say, if only I were a piece of mud brick in the city walls of Al-Quds. Kanzul Umman. This is related in Kanzul Umman. So this is a very clear description of the time that we live in. SubhanAllah. As Ali was looking at that, how did he see it? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed him of all of that. And it is clear from that, because this hadith is not related by others other than Sayyidina Ali, that he related and gave him knowledge that others did not have. So as mentioned in the hadith before, وأن ترى الحفاة العراة العلات رعاء الشاة يتطاولون في البنيان. You will see the barefoot, naked, destitute Bedouin shepherds eating and constructing tall buildings. That is one of the clearest, most obvious signs that you can see everywhere. Go to the Muslim countries. There's not one of them in which the main cities have huge buildings, and each of them built by one Bedouin or another Bedouin. They were tribes. Before 100 years, they had nothing except sheep and goats. And when they found oil, they became rich. But it is well known, they built these huge buildings, but they still go to the desert and they carry their sheep and goats. They don't push them ahead with walking. They put them in the truck, take them out to the desert and graze them. So those are the people described in this hadith. As we are seeing today, everyone following their own desires and no one is following what Allah wants. And they sold the religion for dunya and they did not care about bloodshed by any means. So we see so many countries, Muslim countries, silent when non-Muslim countries are oppressing and killing and harming the Muslim believers within them. No one says anything because it involves dunya. So it mentioned the blood relationships, blood ties have been cut. So people no longer care for their parents, their children, their wives, their brothers, their sisters. Everyone is cutting each other and have no patience with one another and look for dunya, gathering dunya before akhirah. The patient one is considered weak, and you see the princes. You see the Muslim world has many princes now. They control us. They are tyrants, and their ministries betray the people that chose them. Even those who know how to read the Quran become corrupted, and there is abundant divorce. So now you see in every house, sadly to say, that after many years of marriage, people become divorced. And then another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Amran Bayt al-Maqdis wa Kharaba Yathrib, that one of the signs of the last days is the restoration of Jerusalem, rebuilding it. So now we see in Jerusalem so many works being done to build back the old buildings and old things that were from the traditional time of Bani Israel. And at the same time, Kharabu Yathrib, well, you would say if you go to Medina that it doesn't look like Kharab, it's being completely rebuilt. But what the ulama say, why did the Prophet ﷺ use that term Yathrib instead of Medina? It's because he was talking about the old city. So if you go to Medina, hardly anything remains of the old city. In fact, all around the Haram Sharif, which has been expanded, there's nothing left. It's all hotels. It's all brand new buildings. All the people who used to live there, Al-Mujawir and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they have been removed and sent away, especially Ahlul Bayt, who used to reside very close to the masjid, have been pushed and shoved away. So that description in that hadith describes what is currently happening in Medina al-Munawwara and the restoration of Masjid al-Aqsa and what is happening today of the relics and the temple that they are trying to rebuild. In another hadith, فَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ مَكَّةَ قَدْ بُجِّجَتْ كَذَعِمْ وَرَأَيْتَ الْبَنَاءَ يَعْلُو رُؤُوسَ الْجِبَالِ فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْأَمْرَ قَدْ أَطْلَقَ. So when you see that Mecca has been punctured and you see the buildings surpassing the tops of the mountains, then you must know that the command has already cast its shadow over you. Related by Ibn Abi Shaybah in his Musannaf. So if you go to Mecca today, you see every mountain has tunnels going through it. And even under the Haram, there are huge tunnels and all kinds of different things underneath which people are using. And then above, towering above everything, is the huge clock tower and all the buildings next to it. They are so tall that you can see them from like 30 miles away when you're coming from Jeddah, long before you see the mountains of Mecca, as this hadith described. So this hadith says, when you see that, know that the Amr, the event, and what is the Amr? The great Amr is Yawm al-Qiyamah, as-Sa'a. Know that the shadow of the hour is upon you. And from Mu'adh ibn Jabal, where he related, a fierce, bloody battle will appear, and the appearance and the conquest of Constantinople, Istanbul, or at that time was Constantinia, and the conquest of Constantinia, and then the appearance of a Dajjal. This is mentioned in a long hadith, and there are many other hadith about Al-Malhama, Al-Malhamat al-Kubra, that is the great battle in the last days. And Prophet ﷺ describing it as the greatest and the biggest battle. So what we have seen of battles before and wars before are not comparable. Even World War I, even World War II, in which atomic weapons were used, are not going to be comparable to this last immense battle in which huge will fight with each other. All of this is only to remind us, as the Prophet ﷺ is reminding us, that The hour is so near, prepare for it, and do not forget about it. But keep it at the edge of your mind and be expecting these immense events in your own lifetime. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين. يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر. الحمد لله حمد الكاملين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين تعظيما لنبيه وتكريما فقام شان سفيه فقال الزوجل من قائل مخبرا وآمرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وبارك اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات واكتب الصحة والسلامة والعافية وعلينا وعلى الحجاج والزوار والمؤتمرين في برك وجوك وبحرك من أمة محمد عامة أجمعين وسلام على المرسلين خصوصا على سيد المرسلين وسلامة على الحاضرين والغائبين والحمد لله رب العالمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. واقم الصلاة.
اللهم صل على محمد